morning, everyone, and welcome to today's professional development series. My name is Emily. I'm our Director of Programs for 11th grade, and today we have Dr. Michael Badriaki, the Superintendent of Lancaster Mennonite Schools, with us today.
Yes, excited to be here.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So just to get us started, could you share a bit about your background, such as like where did you grow up and what was a defining childhood experience?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here, Emily. I have heard great things about you and the great work you're doing here and the amazing professional development series that Attollo has put on. I've listened to some, and of course, Jordan and I are friends, and gotten to know his family, but also Leo and Bemnet, and you know, some of the team that has been here in and out, and very, very grateful for the work Attollo is doing.
Thank you.
Maybe even just a little bit on that. Lancaster Mennonite School has a partnership with Attollo.
We do, yep.
And students have really benefited from your mission here. I was talking to one of the high school principals, and he talked about how he noticed that students who are involved in Attollo are doing very, very well. So,
thank you.
Kudos to you.
Thank you.
My background is a long story, you know, and so I'm just going to. I have a long version. I have a short version.
Okay.
Perhaps let me try and paint that picture through a story, a brief and quick story, through the eyes of a young little boy, and I'm doing that because my story also mirrors the story of very many young boys, not just here in the U.S., but globally as well. And so normally I'm navigating through that global perspective because that's really my story. So if you can imagine a young boy who was raised with parents that very much care for their children and wanted them to get an education. They really stressed education. Mom and dad of the little boy always said, read as much as you can. They didn't say study, they didn't say learn, but this idea, read as much as you can, which meant you read orally through listening to stories from elders, from neighbors, but you also read literature. And incidentally, this young boy went through a school system that was British, and had also teachers who talked about reading. You know, instead of asking the question, what are you studying, they would say, what are you reading? Right? So there's an emphasis on reading people's, reading the room, sort of that type of expression. So the parents stressed reading, education, and at some point, the parents who had means, because they didn't grow up, they weren't living in the United States where public school was accessible to many, they paid for school, and the best schools then. And at some point, the parents fell on hard times. This young boy wasn't able to go to school because parents were not able to pay tuition. You can imagine that that's quite devastating to anybody who has lost that, because you lose opportunity. This young boy loses opportunity to go to school, to work on his dreams. Education in places like Africa, it's your ramp on to your dreams and to the economy and to opportunity. And so for a few years, this young boy wasn't able to go to school, but the parents kept on working to make that happen. And at some point, this young boy, because of the dream of education, would still go to his friends who were in school to get homework to stay updated with what they were learning, right? You can see the tenacity, perseverance, and not being able to go to school is a shameful thing. I just want to at least paint the emotions as well. You're dealing with the shame of that. You're dealing with the just the loss of opportunity. And at some point, this young boy also found faith. Faith in God. And what that meant is that for the young boy, maybe school or education or reading, which was important, now sort of took another perspective. There was something bigger. There was something more meaningful, that maybe faith in God would also connect this opportunity back somewhere. And so this young boy got really involved with volunteering with faith-based organizations, and that really formed this young boy. And at some point, the parents were able to garner some money, and a missionary through a faith-based organization got to hear of this young boy's story and was quite actually distraught that this young boy was not in school, because he thought this young boy was very talented, very gifted. And so one day he walked up to the little boy and said, "Hey, I've heard of your story. Can you tell me, if there's anybody that needs to be in school, it is you. You got a bright mind, you've helped me with culture." And they bonded, they got a good friendship going. And then at some point, this missionary said, "Hey, here's some money. If it's going to contribute to your tuition, if it's going to top up whatever." And it was enough money to top up what the parents had put together. That's how this young boy got back to school, finished high school, got a scholarship to come to the United States, finished his undergraduate, finished his master's degree, finished his first doctorate, and just last May, finished his second doctorate, a PhD in education, with a focus on culture. Right?
Yes.
That's the shortest story.
Wow. That sounds like, I mean, when we think about Attollo and something that I know I'm really passionate about instilling in our scholars and our students is not only how do you live our pillars in the 6 weeks of recruit, but how do you continue to live them in your everyday life?
Yes.
And your story just really exemplifies resiliency and how do you bounce back from a setback, and what does that look like in practice? Absolutely.
I think one of the things you and I talked about briefly before the interview is this idea of human flourishing, right? Human flourishing happens within the process of human development. And every one of us, every human being, is on that journey of human development. And you know, when you're baby, we can know, through educators know, psychologists know what stage that is. And we all can relate when we hear about that stage, right? We are at a place in life when you're a baby, you're being supported by your parents, you're being supported by the community, they're investing in you, they're socializing you, and then as a teenager, you grow up and you're still figuring out what it's like to grow up, who you are, your identity, right? And your industriousness. And then when you're in your 20s, that's a different stage. When you're in your 30s, you're feeling a different stage, 40s. We know what that is like. It's full of anxiety, it's full of fears, it's full of, right? It's full of doubt, you question yourself. But then resilience is also part of that. Is it, oh, okay, experience after experience shows you, oh, that was a challenge, but I overcame it. I can do that. Oh, I can do better here. I can improve here. Human development needs to be accompanied with the desire for human flourishing. This idea that you can do it. You can do it. I share with students, if I can get through some things, and I did not grow up in the United States with the opportunity that many have, most kids are going to be okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess you bring up how you didn't grow up here, but you're here now. What has kept you here, and why? And I guess also, how did you find Lancaster specifically?
Yeah, that's a good question. What has kept me here is so my wife is from the United States, and so my daughter was born here. She has family here, and some of my family now live in the United States as well. So my world has expanded. I feel like I have two homes. I'm home away from home. So I get to enjoy the best of both worlds. So I'm loving that. I feel like my calling in life, what I do, expands vocationally in a global sense. So that really is part of my identity. And so, one, I love living in the United States, love Uganda. It's just this season of my life, I'm here. And home is where my wife is and daughter. really. I could move anywhere and be home with them.
Absolutely.
And of course my friends, but my friends are all over the world.
Yeah.
How I came to Lancaster, it was opportunity. Right, it was opportunity, but ultimately what I have now learned to look at opportunity as is my vocational calling. When we moved to Lancaster, we were running a business in Vancouver, Washington. My wife and I had started a coffee shop, and it was an exciting business venture. It was going so well. There's a video online I like to show people of when we opened. I mean, this thing was just buzzing with excitement, fun, and we hired high school students who were just so vibrant, and it was great. And I was teaching at a college, at a university in Portland, Oregon, called George Fox. So I was a professor. I was doing quite a bit of writing. I had lots of opportunities to speak both in the United States and outside. So we really had an enjoyable life, and I wasn't looking to move, but then the opportunity to come and work here in Lancaster opened up, and my wife and I just thought, how about we think through it? What's next? Maybe this is it. And so we always like to pray about everything, my wife and I, because remember when I told you the young boy found faith? This is actually 12, 14, 15. In other words, I'm a follower. I believe in Jesus. I believe in God. I really take Scripture seriously. This is not to shove religion down anybody's throat. It's just that I cannot imagine a world without the love of God. Right? Can you imagine if the world, if human beings, if we all loved God with all our hearts, all our minds, and loved neighbor? Can you imagine? Just imagine that world? It kind of gives me goosebumps, right? It reminds me of what Rodney King says, why can't we all get along? I think we're all longing for a love that brings us together. And I think God's love does that the best. All right. See where my faith background, I'll keep weaving that in there, but that's me. That's really at the core of who I am. We prayed through it, and we thought, all right, let's just let me go do the interviews. Let me go see what promises that has. When I came to do the interviews out here, went back and told my wife. I said, honey, I think we just might want to keep exploring this. And Lancaster was beautiful. It was just that moment. You know, when you know, you can't explain it. But there was so much there. We loved the place, we loved the people, and we thought, let's move. And so we're running the business remotely because we had a great team that was running that for us. This was pre-COVID.
I see. Now, circling back to George Fox University, this is where you got your first doctorate.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah,
in
correct.
Leadership and Global Perspectives.
Correct.
My understanding is you've also had professional experiences from in other countries and continents as well.
Right.
Could you talk a little bit about your experience in those other places outside of the U.S.?
Yes. So I have been fortunate to travel, and in Uganda we have a phrase in one of the languages which I speak. It's called Luganda. The phrase goes, "Okutambula kulaba, okudda kunyumya," means traveling is to see, right? And I it goes beyond sight, because how can I explain it? There's another phrase that says the eyes of a Muganda are in his or her hands, right? In other words, when you see, you feel, you touch appropriately, in a sense. You get your six senses going. And then when you come back from the travel, now you have other people's stories to steward. You have other people's stories to faithfully talk about, to respectfully talk about. But they've also changed you maybe as much as you've changed them. You're a transforming human being. And so that's my experience in traveling. Good. So I've been to a number of countries, a number of continents, but my foremost experience was in Haiti, where we were doing medical, non-clinical work, in the sense I was working for a medical organization that did disaster relief and humanitarian response. So development work, global health work, and it was right after the 7.0 earthquake that hit. Now, part of my story in Uganda, the part I didn't share, was that Uganda also has lived through a series of wars. You know, kind of like what's going on in Ukraine. In Uganda, we know what that looks like. Our current president in Uganda came through a military operation to become president. I was alive for that war. My family lived through that war. It ended in, I think 86. But countries do pay for war after the war ends, so it still isn't over, even after it's over, right? Just to say, having lived through that experience, I went to Haiti, and I don't think I'd ever seen devastation that, it was quite something. Buildings down, the tent cities. I have other vivid pictures that maybe would be a little bit too much to share here. But what I saw there again was the spirit of the human resilience. How people bond together during suffering, how people try to pick each other up when things are totally broken and down. And wow, yeah, so you just learn more about human beings, and then you also get to appreciate who you are, because those people who are working through all kinds of devastation are reminding you of, you got the same type of resilience. And so working together with them and the organization and other organizations was pretty cool. And to see doctors from all over the world coming to work with people they didn't know, but they were all there to save lives. And I think that's another form of resilience.
Absolutely.
Right. And another form of human development, because I think one of the last stages in the human development process is this idea of generativity, right? Where it's now time to give back. I think retirement is actually a time of, should be changed to generativity, right? It's a time to give back. All of us are headed there. But you know what, Attollo, you're already doing it. We're already doing it here. We're not waiting for them. That's the cool thing about the human spirit, is that we don't have to wait till we have free time to volunteer. We can really build that into our professions, in our work, so that it's more than work. It's more than the job. It's a vocation. It's a calling. Yeah. I think we really, we need to get to that place where we figure out what's the calling. And you might figure it out today, but 3 years in, you might realize, I now understand a little more about it, and maybe it's this other direction. So the calling is a little more flexible than and exploratory than I think sometimes we confine ourselves.
Interesting. I guess part
Am I
of
getting to?
No, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm like, my brain is going, and I almost want to completely ignore the questions that I've written.
No, let's get to that.
As you expand.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a lot about how our conversation is reflecting things that you wrote about in your book, When Helping Works.
Right.
The concept of missionary work, and really just a response to people who disagree with missionary work.
Right.
Which, to be fair, that has definitely been a thought that has crossed my mind.
Sure, yes.
But I love that something that you bring to light is helping people calls for the need to build friendships and partnerships across the globe.
Absolutely.
How do you maintain those relationships with people?
Right.
As someone who's struggling to maintain the relationships in the state, how are you maintaining them across the globe?
That's a very, very astute question. So, I'm categorizing my responses here because right now I'm thinking about the book I wrote, right? Because it's over 100 pages.
Yep.
And quite a bit of it came out of my dissertation. So it is actually research. Because there are other books out there that are even popular on this topic, but they're not research.
Yes.
And why I needed to do that is because I wanted to do a credible job in putting out information there. So you see, again, there's a resilience there. We have to do the work. If we're going to be excellent, if we're going to be, if our work is going to be trustworthy, it really takes doing the work with care. Now, I really care about this topic because beyond the term missionary, right? Sometimes people have an ick feeling about that term. But if we just scrub that down, we're really talking about the helping vocation, which we all do. Every one of us, you would actually say, is a missionary in one way or the other, if you look at it that way. Because we're always, I was helped from, because I shared my background. I was helped from when I was a kid. My mom and dad nursed me all the way up with the village. In Africa, we say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, that doesn't stop because it takes a village to raise an adult. Oh, wait, it takes a village to raise a teenager. Oh, wait, it takes a village to raise a mom and a dad. Because you still need the community. You need your church support, you need your community support, you need your friends' support. It takes a community to raise Attollo. You have the team, right? And then you have the students. It takes a community to keep a superintendent sane. Right? I have a team that surrounds me that is phenomenal. An administrative team. It takes that level of maturity to understand that collaboration, that's help. So I'm very passionate about it. Missionaries, if you read the history in the world, have actually done, the hospitals we have in most countries outside of the US, but even here, was studied by missionaries. Schools were studied by missionaries. Education is very heavily influenced by missionary work. This idea even of what looks like democracy outside or inside countries, you'll find that somehow Christianity has something to do with it. So I'm just trying to say that there's good and bad. And so there are areas where you will also study that missionaries didn't do a good job. They messed it up. Just their attitudes, their ways of approaching culture, right? So you will find that. If you're going to look for what is good, you'll find it. If you're going to look for what's bad, it's there, the mixed bag. What I'm hoping that we don't lose is the mission-driven element of God's desire for all of us to participate in His mission of sharing the good news of loving one another, of caring for each other. Scripture talks about being I am my brother's keeper. Like, when I meet a stranger, the best thing I could do is get to know their name. Just get to know their name. If that's possible. Where else can I help? Regardless or including one's faith background, because there's people who believe and people who don't. We have the image of God in us that is designed for relationship with one another. Helping to me is not the problem, it's how we do it. I worry sometimes that there are certain frameworks that address the idea of helping from a purely economic perspective, from a framework that actually is culturally blind.
Yep.
Right? So I was actually addressing another book on the market.
You were.
that I think actually has huge blind spots, but has become sort of the
book.
The book. And I have tried to get that author's attention.
Interesting.
And it would be great. I think it just warrants. It would be great for the author to consider a non-Western perspective, because he's writing from a Western perspective about non-Westerners, and particularly Uganda. I know that context better than he does. You see? So I was just trying to add a little bit of complexion in the conversation, because there's levels there. There's a cultural blindness. There's a racial blindness. And I'm trying to offer a little bit of another view. But that also goes to say that authors from a non-Western perspective are not usually given the necessary platforms. So I appreciate you even raising this up, because Attollo, this is something really, really valuable about Attollo. Is you, I think Attollo sees us all. Yeah.
There's definitely, and I agree completely, an attempt on our end, and I guess not even just an attempt, there is a drive to better understand the needs of our community rather than going in and saying this is what you need. And that is the whole point.
Yes, and in the book I talk about partnership, right? And I use an analogy. Because, again, we could prescribe how we do partnerships, but it's one thing for me to come to somebody and say, hey, I want to partner with you, but what I mean is that I am the rider, you're the donkey.
Yep.
And that's how I define partnership. It's not going to work, is it? Even if I need your resources and I say, sure, you could be the rider for 3 months. Well, when are we gonna now say, all right, can we see eye to eye? Can we stop this rider donkey thing? Right? When is that going to happen? So partnership, I use the analogy I learned from the village. So in Uganda, when we're cooking meals, when mom is cooking a meal, we all would get involved. Mom would say, hey, could you cut the tomatoes? My brother, could you help me, could you cut the onions? Can somebody chop up the meat, right? So the whole community was involved in the kitchen. We cooked the meal together. How about that, right? That flattens, I think that's a great model, because then the cooking would actually become a community event. It was a conversational event. We asked Mom, so Mom, how come you don't use a recipe? She said, well, I've done this for 10 years. I for this long or that long, and I just know what to do. So you trust her. Yeah. You trust her. You don't bring your manual to her and say, oh, Mom, that's not the way you do it. Here's a book from, Rachel's show. What was that show on?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, nothing against her, but it's like I love that Mom has her knowledge. She is a keeper of her knowledge of the food, and it communicates. That's why it's been tasting so good all these years. She knows what to do, right? So there's this idea of building. I called it faithful friendships and interdependent partnerships. Getting to that point where we trust each other, and I'm out of your way so that you do your job, and because you do it well, you're competent, I trust you, and when we make mistakes, I'm not going to humiliate you. Because we have that friendship, we'll figure it out. Leo and I have talked about this idea of psychological safety. It's sort of right? Amy Armstrong is the one who who really is the brainchild of this concept, and it's the idea that it's the absence of interpersonal fear. When we're working together, can we get to those places where, I really trust my colleague. We're figuring things out, but the friendship is there, the relationship is there, and then safety, and then the freedom to voice what you feel. I think we can all do that. Children actually do this very, very well. When you see children playing, they do this all the time. And speaking of human development, and I know that's your background, Jean Piaget talked about how children build so much resilience through play.
Yes.
Right? They even build the rules for the game.
Yeah.
Children. They start their own thing. Like, as adults, when did we lose that? Can we imagine a time where we regain that? Where we dance again? Where we play again? Where we work, our workspaces allow for that. Our home spaces allow for that. Our community spaces allow for that. But that's helping to me. And so I wanted to even do more writing on that. It is missionary work done at its best, because it's based on God's mission. Not my mission, God's mission, which means I have to know, all right, God really wants me to love. God even wants me to love my enemies. That's really difficult, That's difficult. But that is actually awesome, that, hey, I don't have to always carry hate, bitterness in my heart. There's a way out. There's a way out to love again, to listen again, to know again. One more try tomorrow. It might have no work today, but maybe the hope is it will work tomorrow if I try again.
Thank you. I think it's really affirming coming from someone who's a part of that work, to hear the validation behind how we approach our mission.
One other theory that I talked about in my book was this idea of negative stereotype threat. Yes. Right? And that was developed by Claude Steele, an African-American scholar. At the time, it was at Stanford. And I just read all the literature that had everything to do with that, and I learned a lot. But negative stereotype threat, you know what it is? So we have stereotypes where the brain does it. The brain categorizes. You see someone, you put them in a box. It's in your head. You might not even say it, but the brain categorizes, and you could stereotype somebody upward or downward. In other words, if you look at somebody and you think, oh, they have cool glasses, that means they're smart, right? That is sort of what's called, it's a lift. But when you look at somebody and you look at them negatively,
it's a threat.
It's a threat. It's negative. It's not good. Negative stereotype threat goes beyond that, because it says that the theory says that if it's happened to you, if somebody thinks of you in a way that is stereotype lift, it's actually going to, it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? In other words, somebody sees you working through something and it's difficult, and they say, hey, Michael, you can do it. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense that it's very likely that I'm actually going to be encouraged by that. And I'm going to act on that, because it might be what I needed. But if somebody says, Michael, you're not smart enough, Michael, I don't think you deserve this because of just, I don't think you're the right person. Without giving somebody a try, it's very likely that Michael it's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy, in the sense that that's what I'm going to believe. Or at least I'm going to struggle with that comment, saying, oh. And then when it preoccupies me, Sarah, we talked about self-efficacy, right? It is going to hinder my self-efficacy because I'm preoccupied with it, and I'm not investing my energy and my gifts and talents into actually overcoming it. So psychological safety is this idea that we create positive opportunities of positive positive unconditional regard that helps us lift each other up other than pull each other down. But you hear the word help in there? Yeah. I think that that makes missionary work cool again. I think that that's what it is. This idea of, packing my bags and going over there, people say I've heard them say Timbuktu. By the way, it's not pronounced Timbuktu. It is Timbuktu, right? It's different. Timbuktu and Timbuktu are two different pronunciations. That mistake is one thing. But looking at each other as, hey, my neighbor, my fellow human being, created in the image of God, is worth my respect. And when I get an opportunity to help, I'm going to help. And when we have conflict, let's work through it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I know I could definitely continue asking questions, and I want to make sure that we save some time for our audience. So we have about time for 2 questions, I want to say. Anyone want to kick us off? Diego.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Diego.
Hi, Diego.
Hi, Diego. I really appreciate the story that you shared in the beginning of this conversation.
Thank you.
The distinction between, of course, learning in the classroom, but also furthering your education outside of it.
Right.
I'm curious, as someone who's clearly invested so much in their own education, now being a superintendent, investing in the education of others inside the classroom.
Yeah.
I'm curious in what ways you feel that you further your education now that you're outside of the classroom.
Oh, Diego. My goodness, Diego. That's so good. Thank you, Diego. I'm going to answer, but can I hear your thoughts more on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, could you unpack your interest in that?
Yeah. I study film into English.
Okay.
And so I think that for me, while I'm reading in classes, I feel that most of the impactful experiences I've had with education have been me in a book alone.
Right.
And so I appreciated the distinction you make between what are you studying and what are you reading.
Right.
I feel that we should always be asking people,
right,
what are you reading? What are you doing outside of the classroom to further yourself?
So that connected with you then?
Yeah.
So I think you've picked up on exactly what I was trying to get to. And I trust that you get it, actually. So thanks for the question. I think that we're all craving that. How many, if you just would raise your hand, how many of you would say, even without knowing, I want to learn, I want to learn about something now, without even knowing it? You see what I'm saying? Like, this is a poll here. Everyone raised their hand. So, the human being is created to create. We have the skills and talents, and because of the image of God, which includes the brain, neurophysiologically is wired for creation. When we don't do that, there's a gap. There's a gap in my life, there's a gap in your life, there's a gap in those little children that are being born today, because we all count on that. I think that that's why people who invest in libraries have a deep instinct and passion for that, because they're trying to get us to access knowledge. Now, it's not knowledge for just cerebral sense, in the sense the brain, right? The learning format that we have now that was created for the classroom, if you read the history, goes all the way back to the Industrial Revolution, where our settings of learning were created for creating people for the factories. So there's that historical piece. Now you and I, with this very same, this desire to learn and read, instead of just rote learning, is for us to really invest in who we are. All of us crave to invest in who we are, so that it's about getting better. It's about growth. It's not about me one-upping you. It's not about me. Remove the degrees. We all are better off if we are in a learning stream together. Right? It's like a river. If a river just stays stagnant, it dies. Right? So there's an actual spiritual level of learning that goes beyond the education framework that we have. And so you and I need to take the responsibility. Here are other themes going through my mind. The open book, here's the open book. But let me just leave you with this one. Here, the idea of trusteeship, you have the opportunity to, you've been entrusted with you. You are a trustee for you. You know, people have trust funds. You're better than a trust fund. Seriously. You know, people have foundations. You're better than 60 million seated in a foundation somewhere. How much is your worth? How much worth are you? How much worth am I? You and I, human beings, we are more valuable than a business. This is why things like slavery were really terrible. Just terrible. To treat a human being as a commodity, unbecoming before God's eyes, and so human beings. So I take it to that level of calling. I think it's my calling to steward me. It's my calling to ensure that I am, my dad used to tell me, he used to say, Michael, your job is to prepare. Because preparation and opportunity, he would say, is where luck happens. You just prepare. Be as prepared as possible so that you will be able to experience meaning and also serve other people. And you have something to offer. So investing, I would say the word is invest in your learning. Read extensively, travel, and when you're traveling, maybe let me even transpose the word read to another area of attention. Pay attention. Pay attention to who's next to you. Pay attention even by asking them, hey, what are you reading? Pay attention to the movies you're watching. What is that saying to me? Pay attention. Just pay attention. Pay attention to the butterflies when you're around flowers. Just pay attention. I appreciate reading Sherlock Holmes, right? Mm-hmm. I appreciate how attentive of a mind he has. It's really fascinating, right? So attentiveness is really, really key when we are reading. But you're a trustee of yourself. Then govern yourself. Govern yourself. And then lead, self-lead, self-leadership. Because you're counting on you. Your community is counting on you. The future is counting on you. That we are all contributing to this pool of life getting better here and now for the future. So governance really is about, governing yourself is about strategic thinking. I think everybody needs to have a strategic plan for themselves. I'm just saying. Even a bad one is good. Even a bad one is good. You're not a business, but thinking a little bit like that might help. What are your goals? Our daughter is a very brilliant girl. She's amazing. She's so fun to be around. She goes to Lancaster Mennonite School, Attollo. If she was here, she'd think I'm embarrassing her. But oh well. She's just a fascinating person. Each year, before the school starts, my wife and I sit down with her because we do have a plan for we do have what's called a family vision, and she's involved in those discussions. And so we ask her, honey, what are your goals? Not our goals for her. We could create them, but what are her goals? And she gives us one or two goals. That girl pursues those goals each year. It's amazing what the brain does. If you ask the brain, it's amazing what God has gifted us with. So it's about paying attention, investing in yourself. I love reading because I have met friends in the books and mentors in books, dead or alive. and even from 100 years ago. One of the books I've been fascinated with was a book that that's from 100 years ago. And I just have been amazed how much it's connected with me. I'm going blank on his name, which I can't believe. It will come back to me. But here's another thing. Let me just give you another maybe formula to look at, which we all use, everybody uses every day. One way or the other, you benefit from it. It is an accounting formula. In accounting, there's a formula that goes assets equal liability plus owner's equity. Just remember that. If there's anything you take from this, just remember that. Assets equal liability and owner's equity. In other words, if you have an asset, how well that asset does will depend on whether you are investing your owner's money into it or if you're using liability to invest into it. I think it's going to go well if you have less liability and more owner's equity. That's just what everybody does. Every business does that. Even Attollo is at least within that framework. So I think I'm more worth than money because God created human beings, and human beings are amazing. What is it going to have me do? I need to connect with God so that I know how to steward me, invest in me, so that my output is helping others as well in faithful ways. Yeah, gosh, the author is skipping my name. But if you he was a slave. He was a slave, and I think one of the slaves to be freed. We all know him, but he's skipping my mind.
No worries.
And he this was his first book he read. He didn't have opportunity to go to school because of the times, but that built his oratory skills. And I can send you.
Absolutely, and I'll pass it along.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Badriaki,
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for making the concept of human development and human flourishing attainable for us all, and inspiring us to continue learning, investing in ourselves, and truly understanding the concept of helping people. So thank you.
You're absolutely welcome. Yeah.